Here's every Pokemon with a unique typing. Zubat is the only poison flying type Pokemon, which fits perfectly because bats are known to spread diseases like rabies. Swinub is the only ice ground Pokemon, based on the now extinct woolly mammoth from the Ice Age. Tyranitar is the only rock dark Pokemon, inspired by Japanese kaiju that are seen as destructive evil monsters, like Godzilla, especially since the dark type is literally called the evil type in Japan. Shedinja is the only bug ghost Pokemon, based on the discarded husk a cicada leaves behind when it molts, somehow coming to life. Baltoy is the only ground psychic Pokemon, based on ancient clay spaceman dolls from the Jomon period of Japan. Empoleon is the only water steel Pokemon, based on an emperor penguin wielding a trident like the Greek god Poseidon. Bibarel is the only normal water Pokemon, based on the fact that beavers live underwater while building dams on land. Snover is the only grass ice Pokemon, inspired by snow-covered evergreen trees during the winter. Frostlass is the only ice ghost Pokemon, based on the Yuki Onna, a female ice spirit from Japanese folklore. Rotom is the only electric ghost and electric fire Pokemon, based on the classic poltergeist that possesses household appliances. Pawniard is the only dark steel Pokemon, inspired by evil samurai warriors. Helioptile is the only electric normal Pokemon, based on cold-blooded lizards that rely on sunlight to generate energy. Litleo is the only fire normal Pokemon, based on a lion with a mane inspired by the Demonji bonfire. Tyrant is the only rock dragon Pokemon, based on the T-Rex, since dinosaur and Pokemon are often treated as dragons. Mega Altaria is the only dragon fairy Pokemon, inspired by the mythical Chinese Pang bird, which shares traits with dragons. Alolan Raichu is the only electric psychic Pokemon, likely inspired by Puka, the surfing Pikachu from the anime that has psychic powers. Alolan Sandshrew is the only ice steel Pokemon, basically designed around the idea of an igloo. Alolan Ninetales is the only ice fairy Pokemon, based on Arctic foxes and the Northern Lights. Cutiefly is the only bug fairy Pokemon, inspired by a real-world bee fly that looks a lot like a fairy tale creature. Crabominable is the only ice fighting Pokemon, a pun on the Yeti crab, which literally looks like it's boxing when it's fighting. Volcanion is the only fire water Pokemon, based on the concept of a steam engine. Toxel is the only electric poison Pokemon, inspired by electric guitars and punk rock culture. Impidimp is the only dark fairy Pokemon, based on imps and goblins from fairy tales. Marpeco is the only electric dark Pokemon, based on territorial hamsters that get hangry when hoarding food. Snob is the only ice bug Pokemon, simply inspired by the Arctic moth. Hisuian Zora is the only normal ghost Pokemon, based on the vengeful Japanese spirit known as the Onryo. Lokix is the only bug dark Pokemon, inspired by the villains from Kamen Rider, a Japanese superhero series. Shroodle is the only normal poison Pokemon, based on the fact that shrews are one of the very few venomous mammals. Vroom is the only steel poison Pokemon, inspired by car engines that emit toxic fumes. Great Tusk is the only ground fighting Pokemon, based on aggressive ancient mammoths related to Donphan. And lastly, Iron Valiant is the only fighting fairy Pokemon, based on a fusion of Gardevoir and Gallade that combines both of their secondary typings. But hey,